My mother's kitchen always smelled like cinnamon and dish soap on Christmas Eve. This year was no different, except for the way my stomach tightened when she turned to me, apron dusted with flour, and said in that syrupy voice I knew too well, "Since you're staying over, you'll watch the kids while we go to the midnight service." They've had such a long year. It wasn't a question. It never was. Lily was already in her coat, scrolling her phone. Without looking up, she added, "You're the fun one anyway. You don't mind, right? Like my plans, my rest, my life were background noise." I set my glass down and heard my own voice come out steadier than I felt. "Actually, I do mind. I'm not your built-in babysitter anymore." The room froze. My mother's smile vanished so fast it was like a trick of the light. "There you go," she snapped, ruining Christmas. Again. The thing is, this wasn't the first Christmas she tried to turn into free childcare. It was just the first time I came prepared. People talk about oldest child syndrome, like it's a joke, but in our house it might as well have been a job description. I was the responsible one before I was even tall enough to reach the top shelf. My parents bragged about it constantly. At family gatherings, my mother would pat my shoulder and say, "This is our mature one. So independent." Then she'd pull Lily into her side and coo, "And this is our baby. She just needs a little more attention." Attention meant Lily got softness and excuses. I got tasks and silence. I remember being 10, standing on a chair at the sink, hands pruned from hot water, as I washed a mountain of dishes while Lily sprawled on the couch watching cartoons. When I asked why she didn't have to help, my mother didn't even look up. "You're so good," she said. "I don't even have to worry about you." She'd said almost the same thing the night she forgot to pick me up from a school event. I sat alone in the dark parking lot, hugging my backpack, while teachers' cars pulled away one by one. When she finally arrived 40 minutes late, she laughed it off. "I knew you'd be fine. You're my independent one." Christmases told the same story in different wrapping paper. Lily tore into big, bright boxes, dolls that talked, glittery art sets, anything she'd circled in the catalog. My pile was smaller, neater. A planner with my initials pressed into the cover. A stack of new notebooks. A set of highlighters. "These will help you stay organized," my dad said, proud, like he'd handed me the world. Everyone fussed over how adorable Lily looked in her new dress, how special she was. I sat on the edge of the couch with my practical gifts and tried to feel grateful, telling myself that being the responsible one meant I was strong, mature, above needing what she got. But the truth was simpler. She was allowed to be the child. I was expected to be everything else. By the time I was a teenager, helping out had turned into an unpaid job I never signed up for. Lily had her first baby in her early 20s, right around the time I was drowning in finals and student loans. That Christmas, I came home from college proud of surviving another semester, ready to tell stories about my classes and maybe, for once, be the one everyone fussed over. Instead, the second I walked through the door, all the attention funneled straight to the tiny bundle in Lily's arms. My parents hovered, cooing and gasping, passing the baby back and forth like a fragile treasure. My mom barely glanced at me when I mentioned I'd made the dean's list. "That's nice, honey. Here, hold him so your sister can finally enjoy a hot meal." It started there. I held him through dinner. Then it was, "Just stay with him while we go see the lights." Then, "Can you put him down so we can all play a game?" All, apparently, didn't include me. While everyone else laughed over dessert and board games, I sat in the dark of Lily's old bedroom, rocking her son as he fussed, listening to my family's voices bleed through the wall. I felt a sharp stab of envy and then immediately shame for feeling it. I told myself, this is what family does. This is you being helpful. When they finally came back, my mom smiled at me like I was an appliance that had just worked properly. "See, you're so good with kids. We'll just make you our built-in babysitter every Christmas," she joked. I laughed along, but the words stuck. Jokes like that usually tell the truth. Years passed. I graduated, moved to another city, and built a life that wasn't orbiting my parents' house. I found a job in a field that demanded responsibility. Ironically, the same trait they'd always praised me for. But this time, I was getting paid for it. I rented a small apartment with peeling paint and terrible parking, but it was mine. Along the way, I collected people who actually seemed to like me, not just what I could do for them. My closest circle formed almost accidentally. Coworkers who became friends, neighbors who showed up with soup when I was sick, and Alex, who started as the quiet guy in my office and somehow became the person I could exhale around. Our first Friendsgiving was the moment I realized how different life could feel. We crowded into my living room with mismatched chairs and lumpy mashed potatoes. No one barked orders. Instead, it was, "Do you want to cook or just hang out? Are you okay with hosting, or is that too much this year?" When I started automatically clearing plates, Alex touched my elbow and said, "Sit. We've got it." After trips home for the holidays, though, he'd watch me drag myself back through my front door like I'd run a marathon. One January, he finally asked, "Why do you come back from vacation looking like you survived a natural disaster?" I laughed it off, but the question lingered. Every year, I promised myself I'd set boundaries next time. And then the next Christmas came, with a twist I didn't see coming. By the time Lily had her second child, our family group chat had turned into a highlight reel of milestones. First steps, first words, first tantrums. I was anti-name. In every caption, even though I mostly saw the kids through a screen. That year, I agreed to a 3-day Christmas visit. Arrive Friday, leave Monday. Short, contained, survivable. A week before my flight, my phone buzzed with a long text from my mom. At first glance, it looked like simple planning. "So you'll arrive Friday at 4, and we'll go pick up the ham. On Saturday you'll watch the kids while I do the baking and Lily and Mark do last-minute shopping. Sunday morning you'll keep them while we're at the church pageant." I read it twice before the pattern fully clicked. Every line that mentioned me was a task. Every line that mentioned them was an outing. There was no, "If you're up for it," no, "Does that work for you?" Just a schedule where I was the built-in childcare unit everyone assumed would show up and plug in. A familiar cocktail of resentment and guilt rose in my chest. Part of me wanted to push back. Another part whispered, "It's just one weekend. Don't start a fight over Christmas." So I went. I followed the schedule. I missed the pageant, the shopping, the casual coffee runs. At dinner, in front of extended family, Lily clinked her glass and joked, "We couldn't afford a nanny, so we just invite my name home for the holidays." Everyone laughed. My mom added, "That's what big siblings are for." I smiled tightly and said nothing. But in my head, I started taking notes. A few months before that last Christmas, my mom called to sort out travel plans, which usually meant telling me what I was doing. I had her on speaker while I folded laundry, half listening, until she said, almost offhand, "Make sure you're here by the 23rd, or Lily won't be able to book her spa day before Christmas." I stopped, a t-shirt frozen in my hands. "Wait, what?" She sighed like I was being dense. "Well, you'll be there to watch the kids. She deserves a break, you know." There it was, no question, no check-in about my schedule, just my time pre-booked so my sister could get a facial. I felt something inside me tilt, like a picture frame finally hanging straight. This wasn't helping during family time anymore. I was being slotted in as free childcare for their separate lives. That night, venting to Alex on the couch, I heard myself say, "They don't want me home for Christmas. They want their nanny back." The words landed heavier than I expected, because I knew they were true. After that call, I started looking at things I'd always brushed off. One slow evening, I sat on my couch with a mug of tea and scrolled back through years of texts, emails, and family group chats. Patterns that had once felt like fog suddenly came into sharp focus. Every "we'd love to have you for the holidays" was followed by some version of, "You can help with the kids," or "It'll be such a relief to have an extra pair of hands." Buried in the group chat, I found messages that weren't even trying to hide it. My mom to Lily. "Ask if my name can stay an extra day so we can get New Year's brunch." Lily replied, "She won't say no, she never does." My stomach flipped. Then a cousin accidentally forwarded a screenshot from a smaller planning chat, one I wasn't supposed to see. Lily had written, "We're saving so much money having my name watch the kids. Daycare is closed all week." A laughing emoji sat at the end of the sentence like a slap. I stared at the screen, heat crawling up my neck. It wasn't just that they assumed I'd help. They were budgeting around my unpaid labor. The hurt was sharp, but underneath it was a strange, cooling clarity. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a system. I started saving everything, screenshots in a folder, dates and times in a note. If they were going to schedule my time like a service, I was going to start treating it like a business decision. And the answer, I realized, scrolling through years of evidence, was simple. I'm closed for the holidays. A month before Christmas, I opened our family group chat, and for once, didn't overthink every word. I typed slowly, carefully, and then forced myself to hit send. "Hey, just to be clear for this year, I'm coming to spend time with everyone, not to provide childcare. I'm happy to hang out with the kids as part of normal family time, but I won't be the sole caregiver so others can go out or run errands. The typing bubbles popped up almost immediately. My mom replied first. Oh honey, no one is using you. We're just a family helping each other. The capitalization told me exactly how defensive she was. Lily chimed in right after. So you don't want to spend time with your niece and nephew now? There it was, the familiar guilt hook, baited and waiting. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, that old reflex to explain, to soften, to apologize flaring up. I took a breath instead. I said I'm happy to spend time with them, with everyone, I wrote back. I'm just not doing unpaid solo childcare so others can leave. Then I put my phone down. No novel-length justification. No nervous emojis. Just the truth. An hour later, my mom called, her voice trembling with wounded outrage. You know I count on you, she said. Don't start drama at Christmas. But for once, I could hear the difference between drama and a boundary. I decided I would still go home. Not to cave, but to confront the pattern in person, on my terms. When I pulled into my parents' driveway that Christmas Eve, everything looked exactly the same as it always had. The porch light glowing, the inflatable snowman listing slightly to one side, the faint smell of cinnamon and roast drifting out as I opened the front door. The kids barreled into me, wrapping themselves around my legs, yelling my name like I was their favorite toy finally back in stock. Inside, everyone was almost suspiciously cheerful. My mom fluttered around refilling glasses, laughing too loudly at nothing. Lily was extra huggy, telling me how amazing it was that I'd made it. For a while, it almost felt normal. We ate, we made small talk, and I waited to see if anyone would acknowledge the boundary I'd set. They didn't. Halfway through dinner, Lily wiped her mouth and said casually, So we'll head to the midnight service after this, then brunch tomorrow with the Martins. It'll be nice to have some adult time. I glanced around. No mention of a sitter. No discussion of bringing the kids. Just a shared assumption floating over the table. I'd stay back. I'd do what I always did. In that moment, it was obvious, the messages, my text, none of it had landed. In their minds, Christmas still equaled me caving. I excused myself to the bathroom, closed the door, and leaned against it for a second. Then I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshots folder I'd made. They thought it would be like every other year. But I didn't come unprepared this time. Back in the kitchen, the night snapped into the scene from the beginning. My mom stood at the counter, wiping her hands on a dish towel, voice dipped in sugar. Since you're staying over, she said, you'll watch the kids while we go to the midnight service. They've had such a long year. Lily, already zipping up her boots, added, You're the fun one anyway, you don't mind, right? This time, I didn't swallow it. No, I said steady. I'm here to spend Christmas with my family, not to be left alone with the kids while everyone else goes out. It was like someone had hit mute on the house. My mom's face crumpled into martyrdom in seconds. After everything I do, you can't give me one night? You know your sister needs this. Lily scoffed. We literally planned everything around you being here. You can't bail last minute. That's the problem, I replied. You're planning my time around what you want, not around what I agree to. From the doorway, my dad muttered, Let's all calm down, but made no move to actually step in. So now you're selfish, Lily said, crossing her arms. Got it. I felt my heartbeat climb, but my voice stayed even. If you really think this is just family helping family, let's look at how you've been talking about me when you think I don't see it. We moved into the living room almost by gravity, the way families do when a storm is coming. My mother sat perched on the edge of her armchair. Lily dropped onto the couch, jaw tight. I stayed standing. It felt easier to stay steady that way. I unlocked my phone, opened the folder, and read out loud. Lily, free childcare secured. Her head snapped toward me. Where did you get that? I ignored the question and kept going. Mom, she won't say no, she never does. My mother's cheeks flushed. We were joking, she said quickly. You know how we talk. It's just family teasing. I scrolled to the next one. Lily, we're saving so much money having my name watch the kids. Daycare is closed all week. Silence. Lily finally spat. Why are you spying on my messages? These were in group chats I was in, I said calmly. Or forwarded by accident. I didn't hack anything. I just stopped pretending I didn't see it. My mom waved a hand, desperate. Oh, come on. We tease. We appreciate you. If it was just a joke, it wouldn't need me losing sleep to make it work, I said. Something in her expression cracked then, her practiced sweetness slipping just enough for the sharpness underneath to show. Lily's face was bright red, eyes flashing. For the first time, I could tell they weren't offended I'd misunderstood them. They were offended I'd finally understood them exactly. I didn't raise my voice. I just stayed with the facts. Let's look at how this actually works, I said. 2 years ago, I came on the 22nd. I watched the kids while you shopped, while you went to the church concert, while you had your girls' night. The year before that, it was the pageant, the office party, and Lily's spa day. This year, you scheduled me so she could get another one. I watched their faces as I spoke, year by year, invitation by invitation, every come home for Christmas glued to an obligation I'd never agreed to. Then I asked, how many times have I gone out without the kids at Christmas? Silence. How many times have you visited me in my city and helped me with anything? More silence. My mom's eyes narrowed. So you've been keeping score, she said, like she'd caught me doing something shameful. I'm not keeping score, I answered. I'm finally reading the scoreboard you built. The words hung there, heavier than any ornament in the house. I took a breath. Here's where I'm at now, I said, voice steady. I'm done playing the role you've written for me. I sat down then, more to show I wasn't about to storm out than anything else. I'm going to be very clear, I said. Here's what I'm willing to do. I'll spend time with everyone as a family. I'll play games, help with dishes, read the kids a bedtime story. I'm happy to be part of the holiday. I met each of their eyes in turn. What I will not do is stay here alone with the kids while you all leave. If that's non-negotiable for you, then I'll go back to my own home and spend Christmas there. My mom shot to her feet like she'd been burned. So you're threatening to leave on Christmas? Over a couple of hours? Lily folded her arms. You're abandoning your niece and nephew because you want to make some point? I shook my head. I'm not abandoning them. I'm refusing to abandon myself anymore. They didn't hear the difference, but I did. My mom's face hardened. If that's how you feel, maybe you shouldn't come for Christmas at all. I let the words land, really land, then nodded slowly. Okay, I said. And for the first time, I meant it. Once the decision was out in the open, everything moved quickly. I went to the guest room and started packing my overnight bag, folding clothes with shaking hands. In the kitchen, my mom cried loud, theatrical sobs, her voice carrying down the hallway. On Christmas Eve of all nights, Lily's muttering drifted after it. Selfish. Making a scene in front of the kids. Unbelievable. The kids hovered in the doorway, eyes wide. I crouched down to their level, forcing a smile. Hey, I said softly, I love you. I'm going to see you another time, okay? But the grown-ups need to figure some things out. They nodded, not really understanding, and hugged me tight. That almost broke me. I walked out to my car with my heart pounding and my chest strangely light, like I'd set something heavy down without meaning to. At home, Alex met me with takeout and pajamas. No questions I didn't want to answer. We spent the rest of Christmas Eve on the couch, watching movies, my phone buzzing angrily on the coffee table. It hurt. But for the first time, Christmas actually felt like rest. Over the next few days, the texts shifted, from rage to guilt to cautious. We just don't understand what happened. I let them sit unanswered. The next year, I treated the holidays like a blank page instead of an obligation. Alex and I hosted a small Christmas brunch for friends who couldn't travel home. People who brought store-bought pastries without shame and asked things like, "Are you sure this isn't too much for you?" One afternoon we volunteered at a local shelter, handing out hot meals with strangers who somehow felt kinder than most of my relatives ever had. There were no secret schedules built on my exhaustion, no guilt attached to sitting down. If I said I was tired, the response was, then rest. Not, then do more. My mom and Lily slid into a kind of low contact. Group texts with photos of the kids, occasional updates, and once a half-hearted, we didn't mean to make you feel used. As if the problem was my feelings, not their behavior. I kept my replies cordial but brief. No more multi-day stays. No more built-in babysitter. There was grief in that distance, for the idea of family I'd chased my whole life, but also a deep, unfamiliar gratitude for the quiet. I finally understood that family is defined less by blood and more by how you're treated when you say no. For most of my life, I thought being the good kid meant never being the one who caused waves, especially around the holidays. I thought love looked like saying yes until I disappeared, like holding everything together while everyone else enjoyed themselves. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Maybe you've been the default babysitter, the unpaid cook, the peacemaker, the therapist, the one everyone leans on while no one asks what it costs you. Here's what I've learned the hard way. Love without boundaries isn't love, it's control. And it's okay to opt out of traditions that are built on taking you for granted. It's okay if your Merry Christmas looks more like peace and less like performance that I didn't ruin Christmas. I ended a tradition that only worked because I disappeared from it. If you've ever been the default helper or free childcare in your family, I'd honestly like to hear your story. How did you handle it? Did you walk away, or are you still figuring it out? Share it in the comments, and if this hit close to home, consider subscribing for more stories about boundaries, toxic patterns, and building a life that finally feels like your own.